What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 58 of Sales Stories in Real Life. I'm your host, Alex Bruschi, and this is the show where professional salespeople share their stories about memorable buying experiences. Today's guest is none other than Melissa Gaglione. She is a global payroll AE at Deel. She specializes in strategic outreach and sales. Make sure you go and check out her video prospecting course on her LinkedIn page. A former on-air news reporter. Melissa, welcome to the show. I hear you had a really interesting experience when you were buying a car. What the heck happened there?
Hi. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for that lovely introduction and for saying my name 100% correct. Wonderful job there. I did have an interesting buying experience when I bought my car. This was actually this time, oh wow, 2 years now it's been. Maybe a year and a half now. Yeah. When I purchased, I won't tell you what I purchased because I'm going to walk you through how I evaluated three different car vendors or car dealerships, how my mind went about it. Because I thought I was a shark. I tried to be, so I got a good deal.
Hey, we are going to start a car buying Shark Tank, and you will be one of the people on the panel. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Perfect. So I should I just hop right into it?
Hop right into it. What happened?
Alrighty. So this was my first time purchasing a car by myself. And so I was trading in my Hyundai Elantra that I traveled across the country with, that I lived in at one point. Like this was my baby. And before I even went to go from dealership to dealership, I did an insane amount of research. So not only did I look for the cars that I did want to purchase, but I was going to be trading in my Hyundai Elantra. So I needed to make sure that I was going to get the best price for that Hyundai. And a big reason why I pulled the trigger on making that switch was because um, when I went to go purchase a car, it was because I knew that used cars were at an all-time high. So my Hyundai Elantra that had purchased for $11,000, I sold for a pretty good amount, in my opinion, when I was purchasing this next car. So part of my buying criteria was get a really good price for my Hyundai Elantra that is pretty beat up at this point. So I really needed to do some research and see, okay, well, which dealerships would take this car, which ones would offer some sort of price for it, what would that piece be? And then I started really digging into the type of car that I wanted. Now, deep down, I wanted my Volkswagen Taos. I really wanted that car. And I strategically wanted to play with the different dealerships to make sure that that worked in my favor of getting my Teos. So it's kind of interesting because I knew what I wanted before I started shopping. Before I really spoke to each delivery or dealership, company, before I even stepped foot or even got into a Teos. I never even got into a Teos. I was like, this is just what I want. So how do I figure out how to get it? So then I did as any, original Long Island Italian girl does, and that's call her dad and get all the details of how I shake these people down. And so, he walked me through, what it's like to buy a car, what I should expect. Like I got the details from him and, he gave me some pointers and then, gave me a big pep talk before I walked in there. And I was like, okay, so let's go through this. And as a buyer, I was really, even though I wanted a Teos, I needed to get that Teos at a good price. I, at the time, had just gotten engaged to my still fiance. We get married in 2 months now. But at the time, I was engaged to my fiance, and he is an outsourced CFO. So he also jokes that he's the CFO of the house. So I had to get CFO approval throughout this process, and I definitely leveraged that throughout this journey. But we did sit down and we said, okay, like what is a good price for a Teos? And we looked at the numbers, what we thought would be an appropriate budget for this type of car, what would fit in our budget, and what we could predict that we can kind of get out and squeeze out of the dealerships. Keep in mind, I was also aware that it was the end of the year. It was the end of December. So I knew that this was the time to come in so I can help that rep, maybe hit that quota at the end of the year. And I was willing to sign, buy, and move everything in under 5 days. So this is all me as a buyer using my kind of sales knowledge where I identified the criteria. I knew what I wanted. I knew what the timeline was. I knew that what I was going to sell to them was at an all-time high. I just needed to get them to the number that I wanted, that my CFO and I have agreed upon would be the appropriate cost for this purchase. So first things first, I went to Hyundai because I wanted to see how much I could get for my Elantra, thinking that I could get the most for my Elantra at Hyundai, and looking at what they had. Turns out I walk in and I get a really young sales rep who's like new and just really excited to sell me this car, and I'm walking in there like I'm a little scared, to be honest, like I am, but I gotta be tough and stuff, and really strategic here. And I came in there and I didn't even look at the car, and we sat at his desk. I giggle because I think he was like 2 months in, and I sat at his desk and I just open up my laptop and I say, okay, like, let's talk numbers. And I have a spreadsheet, which I showed him, and I put in some fake numbers before going there. And I started to say, how much can I get for my Elantra? And I said, and he starts saying things that I'm just typing, and I'm like, mm-hmm. And he's like, and this is what we can get you. And I'm like, okay, next. And so then I say, okay, now let's talk numbers. And again, didn't set foot in a car, didn't even walk around. And I said, okay, let's talk about the cars that you have available on the lot. I said, I want a very small SUV, the smallest SUV you've got. So which one's that? I don't even know the name of the one that it was. And so then I said, okay, how much does that cost? And he said, the cost, and I typed it in. And then I said, how much is it for a lease? And I typed it in. And then I said, how much it is for this? And I typed it in. And like, he's quite like nervous as I'm doing all of this. And he's like, oh, so like, what are you typing up? And so I turn my computer and I show him my Excel sheets where I put in pretend pricing from another dealership, and I put his there, and I put it right under it. And I said, just comparing all the prices. And I said, it's interesting because Volkswagen's going to offer me this price for a car that's actually worth more than the one that you're showing me today. And I was like, so are you sure that this is the best that you can do? Especially since I can sign and, close this out by the end of the year. So he's like, and he's all stressed. And then he goes and he brings out the big guy, or, whatever this guy's name is. I don't even know his name because I didn't really care. I didn't even want that car. I just needed the numbers that were real because, I was playing a game here. So the big guy comes out and we start talking about the numbers, and he sheds it down just like a little bit more. I don't know if he was not taking me seriously or what, but they held their own. And that's fine. I got the number that I wanted, or at least a number that I could at least leverage. But truth be told, like Hyundai, they had the cheapest car, and they were going to, out of all the vendors, they were going to charge me the most amount. And they weren't going to be the least amount for my Elantra. So like, no way am I going there at all. So I go to Hyundai, then I go to Toyota to check out the RAV4. RAV4 is not in stock. So, okay, what else do you have that could be in stock? That wasn't really in like my favor. And when I went there, I did the same thing, sat down with the sales guy, opened up my laptop, and we went through, I forgot the other name of the car. It wasn't a RAV4. It was like a Camry that they were like updating or something like that. So I made it clear, like, this isn't even the car that I want. I was very upset. So they needed to offer a really good price because it's not even what I came in here for. I can't even test drive it because he's telling me that it's going to be on the lot in 2 weeks. But I was willing to sign beforehand and get this all done in 5 days before the end of the year because this is the last week of the year as well, which was strategic. I knew that. Um, and he was going to give me a little bit more money for my Elantra. But I did have to talk to them and negotiate a little bit down because at the end of the day, I didn't come here for that, bigger Camry. I came here for the RAV4 that you're telling me I can't get for the next 2 months. So what are you going to do today to help me get into this, bigger Camry thing?
Right.
So at one point, before he goes to the back, and this was when I was real high and mighty, like I was real confident in my car buying abilities at this point. I just schooled this, 21-year-old at Hyundai. Now I'm at Toyota. I'm just schooling these kids. And at one point, he came back with another number, and I typed it, and I was like, and I showed him where he was at in comparison to Hyundai, and he was a little high in some areas. And at one point, again, I was real high and mighty and really excited. And I like just whispered to him, and I was like, look, I need you to be my champion. And I'm going to need you to take this back. And I'm going to need you to get me this camera thing, whatever this thing is called, for $299 a month. And I was like, can you be my champion? Can you do this? And he looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what is this Gaglione girl coming in here telling me that she's shaking me down? And I was shaking him down. So he comes back and he says he can't do it any lower. So I say, okay, I got to call up my partner, my CFO, because that's what he is. And I call him up and I tell him, and we hang up the phone, and I come back to him, and I'm just like, you know what, this isn't gonna work. Like, it's still too high. It's not the car I want. Thanks, but no thanks. If anything changes, give me a call. Willing to sign by the end of the week. So then I go to Volkswagen, which was where I really wanted to go. And for the first time, the car dealership guy took me seriously before I whipped out my laptop. So from the moment I walked in there, he was really kind, took me very seriously, really got to know me and understand because at first I was really tough because I just had gone through these two. And in the beginning, they didn't take me seriously until I whipped out the laptop and then really started typing in the numbers. And this guy really tried to get to know me. And at first I was like, look, like, I just can only talk price. I was like, I cannot even entertain a Volkswagen Taos unless it's $299 a month. Like, bought, like, not a lease. I wanted it, that's it. And, he didn't understand why I didn't even want to see one because I was like, I don't even want to see it until I know that I can afford it. And he was I don't know what it was with him. Like, he was just a little bit different. And I think it was because like he didn't like he just took me seriously. And so when I whipped up the laptop, this time instead of being all serious and typing it, like, I laughed. And he laughed, and I said, look at what I've been doing all day. And I showed him Toyota, and I showed him Hyundai, and I showed them what they were offering me. And I was like, tell me that that's not crazy. And he agreed that, especially Hyundai, he was like, Hyundai's not even, he's like, Hyundai's offering 5K for your Elantra. I can do better than that. And I was like, well, Toyota's offering me a 7K. Can you offer me 8? So he goes back, he gets the 8K approved, he comes back and he gets the $299 approved. which in my opinion was a fantastic deal. Um, I called my CFO. We got the approval to pull the trigger same day, never stepped foot in a car, didn't even test drive it, just bought it off the lot and came home because that was my criteria was that. So I got the car that I originally wanted for the price that we agreed was going to be appropriate. I got 9K for my Hyundai Elantra, which I bought in 2000, what was it? In 2018, I bought it out for like 11K. So like I really didn't lose. Well, I mean, girl math, I made money on that. But it was definitely an interesting experience. And then I sent my best friend to Volkswagen to that same guy, and she went 2 months later and got the same exact car, just in another color. Because he gave me a good deal. He was a really nice guy. He checked in, made sure that I was happy with it, like listened to me, heard me out, really advocated for me for what I needed, and we were able to close a deal within a few days. So he was quite happy with his commission, and I was quite happy driving the little Teos around for the next couple of years.
Okay, that was really hard work to not laugh hysterically on the other side and interrupt you in the middle of your story. The whisper part of "I need you to be my champ." Okay, I was like really close to losing it at that point. So many similarities here. I'm also actually from Long Island, and I also come from a Volkswagen family. Pretty ironic there. There's one thing that I really want to dive in with you right away, because obviously this is all about negotiation, right? You
Yeah.
you had your laptop, you had your CFO. Congratulations to you and the hubby, of course, for the upcoming wedding. So you like really had yourself structured like a B2B buyer, right? I mean,
Oh
this is
yeah.
very much how B2B buyers buy. Like they have their numbers, they go and get quotes. I imagine most of the times they get quotes from people who they're not even considering, very much like you, right? Like your Toyota or
Mm-hmm.
your Hyundai. It's like they just need quotes to compare line items, essentially. So when you're walking into a negotiation and you have a buyer that's essentially employing the same strategy on you, if you will, right? They come and they have
Yeah.
quotes from competitors, and they have their CFO who they need approval from, and you can't get in touch with the CFO, right? How do you kind of navigate a situation like that?
I think, and maybe this is going back to basics, but like before you even negotiate price, you need to know if you're the chosen vendor. So if Hyundai was like, if they asked me that question, like, if we could get this, like, would you be happy with this car? Deep down, no, I wouldn't be happy with that car because like I didn't really want it. They would have to do more selling than just beyond price, right? They would really have to convince me to get into that, other one. Same thing with the new, Toyota thing.
Right.
They didn't ask me if I really want. In fact, I did play it off that I didn't really want those cars. Um, so they weren't my vendor of choice, yet they were negotiating down and devaluing something that I already didn't care about. So truthfully, when I went into Volkswagen, I was like, they better give me a good price because I don't even want those stupid cars. Like, I didn't want them. So, like, step one in negotiations is like, okay, do not negotiate unless you have been selected as the vendor of choice. And if you are not yet the vendor of choice and you're not done selling, there's more you need to do here. So figure out what it is that's missing. Could it have been, secretly, I did want a window, like a rooftop window. I didn't get that with my Teos, but maybe if that fancier Camry had that, or maybe it had a different type of Apple Play, or maybe it had something else, maybe I would have gone with it. But truthfully, I didn't experience that. I didn't experience the selling because they weren't my chosen vendor, and you still need to sell there. So step one is step one. Well, just make sure that you're the chosen vendor of choice before you start to negotiate, and if not, then figure out why.
So let's play it off, because there are obviously pretty much every purchase right now, B2B purchase is running through a CFO, right? Like shout out again to the hubby. So like let's say you have someone that's a little more close to the chest and they're like, oh, we're not sure who vendor of choice is yet. Like, just give us your best price, right? How would you kind of navigate a situation like that? Would you kind of keep probing and keep trying to ask questions? Would you sort of eventually relent, or what do you think there?
Oh, well, of course. It's like, all right, sure, I'll give you my best price. Sure, no problem. I can work on that. However, it would be helpful for me to understand what exactly it is that you're needing, or what are you going to prioritize with this purchase? Is it going to be analytics? Is it going to be compliance? Is it going to be easy payments? Is it going to be none of the above? And like, what is it? So diving in deeper on their criteria, because little did they know, like when I was buying my car, that I did want a small SUV, but I really cared about the color of the inside and the outside, of course. And I don't know, little things like that that I did really care about that nobody really asked me about, but it could have swayed me into another way. So, yes, understanding what else is part of their buying criteria. And then obviously, who is the final say? The CFO that I have in my house cares a lot about my safety. So he wanted to make sure that the car that I bought was going to be really safe. So even though he looked over the numbers, he did a lot of research on my Volkswagen Taos beforehand. So the person who's going to be signing off, making this decision, what do they care about? Especially if you haven't even seen them or spoken to them, you need to figure out what they care about beyond just the numbers. Especially since I sell payroll, I sell to finance in the finance department. CFOs, in my opinion, they have control over their department's budget. It's difficult for them when marketing or sales comes to them and they're like, I want to buy this. Then, at least they can control their budget. So they care a lot about the numbers, a lot about the numbers.
Right.
So I always need to dig in deeper. I can't just come in low. Actually, it's just not even right, because then you just devalue yourself at that point. So figuring out what the other stakeholders really need from this product, what they care about. If you can't get them on a call, then maybe you're doing some additional research that you can find. Maybe you're sending over like a checklist, or maybe asking them to rank 1 through 5 what's important, some sort of asynchronous communication that you can get some details from the buying committee on what exactly it is that they need. So that would be next.
I love that thought process, because you're requiring them to buy further in, right? Like when they're listing out their top 5 criteria to you, that's them saying, hey, this is what's most important to us.
Mhm.
And to your Hyundai point, like, or Toyota point, like, ask me if I want a midsize, right? Ask me if I'm looking for the Camry, if it's all about the
Yeah.
price. So I really love how you broke that down. What would be your biggest tip that you'd give to sellers? Obviously, this was quite the negotiating masterclass. What would you recommend to reps that are trying to get better at the negotiation parts of their deals?
Look, your buyers are playing the game. Who's not? Everyone's playing the game. And I like to be very transparent in my negotiations, which is, look, I'm not just going to give you a low price just because I like you. Like, I can't. So I'm very clear about the triggers that I can pull. We know long contract terms. We know if they use multiple products. We know if we can tap into volume discounts, and so before I get to price, once I know that I'm the vendor of choice, I walk them through how we price, and I walk them through that piece, so that way they know like what they can really, like what they can figure out, what they can't figure out. And at that point, sometimes they'll be like, oh wait, but you say that you guys do contractors, right? Well, we actually have contractors with another vendor. What if we brought them over? Hey, that can help your price, right? If you bring on some more of that. So that piece being clear, I do like to walk them through how we price, so that way they know their options and levers that they can pull. And it's an open dialogue and an open conversation after we are the vendor of choice and they love our product.
I love that. For me, one of the big levers that I do negotiating the exact same way. So this just feels like listening to a masterclass right now is like predictability, right? Hey, if you tell us you're going to sign on X date and you sign on X date, we can get you this, right? It's like the give and get game. Melissa, this has been absolutely fantastic. Folks, make sure you check out Melissa's video prospecting course on her LinkedIn page. We'll be sure to tag her in this episode. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us all. Sales Stories in Real Life fam, enjoy yourselves, and we will see you next week. Cheers.